Hi there, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to do a oval-shaped painting, and I'll show you how easy it can be. If you want to follow along with me, you can go to my website and download my brushes and my workspace here, and then we'll be working with the same tools, and it'll be really easy for you to follow along step by step. We'll start with the oval selection tool here, and I'm using an 11 by 14 inch canvas, but you can use any size canvas you want. And with the oval selection tool, we're going to try to click in this top left corner and drag down to the bottom right corner, and then release. And that'll give us a centered circle or elliptical shape here. We'll make a new layer, and that selection will move to the new layer. And we can use the paint bucket with current color selected as the fill to go ahead and fill this. And you can fill it with any color you want. I'm just going to use gray. And we'll do a Control D to deselect. Now we can turn off the visibility of the background layer by clicking this eyeball. And when you see this checkered pattern here, this checkered pattern represents transparency. So there will now be no image printed in anywhere that's got this checkered area here. So if you were to print this now onto something like a shirt, your artwork won't have this border around it. Let's go ahead and start our painting now. So we can use, this is our base layer here. Let's call this sky. We'll turn on preserve transparency, and just so it's not so harsh on the eyes, let's go ahead and turn back on this visibility of this canvas layer, but when we go to save this later, we'll leave it off. That way it'll print without this white area. But for now, we'll just leave it on. But we know that it's going to go away, so don't worry too much about it. On the sky layer, we'll use the custom scratchboard tool here, and we'll pick a sky color. I think I'm feeling yellow today, and I haven't really pre-planned this painting. I'm just going to kind of make it up as I go along, because that's how I like to do these paintings sometimes. And we'll use the digital airbrush and an orange color here, a large brush, to paint in some sky. I'm using tab on my keyboard to make my palettes go away, and I'm using space to pan my page. That's two of the most helpful shortcuts. So with a big digital airbrush, I'm going to use kind of firm to light pressure so that we get a nice blend of orange to yellow here. Then I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard and click here to sample this original yellow color. I'm going to lighten it a little bit and brighten it and paint in some towards the bottom. Maybe we'll do maybe like a desert sky or something. That's kind of what I'm feeling today. Let's turn off preserve transparency now, and let's do a right click. You can use your mouse or the button on the side of your pen on where it says sky here on the sky layer, and we'll do select layer content. That'll put a selection around this oval shape. We'll make a new layer. We'll call this clouds. Now when we paint, since this selection was moved to a new layer, we can only paint inside the selection, and what we paint will be on its own layer, not on the sky layer. So that'll be helpful to keep them separate. We can hide the selection with Control-Shift-H on our keyboard. And let's set the blend mode to multiply for the clouds layer. And let's pick a dark purple gray, maybe something like this. Let's see how this looks. For these clouds, let's try the loaded palette knife. I think I like that. Okay, so our horizon's probably going to be somewhere right around here, I think. So let's keep our clouds kind of above that. These clouds that are towards the bottom here, you want them to be kind of flat and not too distinct. But as they start to get closer to you in the foreground, and in a perspective sense, the foreground would be up here. This is what would be over your head, so it would be closer to you. These foreground clouds need to be broader and thicker. So you can start from the top or you can start from the bottom, but you want there to be more thin clouds towards the bottom and more thick clouds towards the top. and everything will just look more natural that way. So we got something like this, and a few little tiny ones in there. And then let's blend these a little bit. We're going to use the coarse oily blender for this, and let's have our paper settings set to Italian watercolor. We'll put the paper contrast somewhere about in the middle, and paper scale can be right around here. With the coarse oily blender, we will blend just the top of some of these clouds. I'm kind of trying to stir these up. I'm trying to make it look like the wind is catching these and kind of pulling it. I don't have to do it so much on the ones towards the bottom. Those are going to be kind of flat. They're further away, so you won't see all that detail. These ones that are closer to you, that are above your head, you're going to be able to see more detail on them. So we get something like that. We're looking good. And we'll use the diffuse blur brush with really, really light pressure to just kind of stir these up a little bit. Makes them look a little more distant, a little softer. Don't overblend. If you overblend, this is what happens. And they go away. We don't want that to happen. So blend out anything that you think looks too harsh. And when you have something like this, we can move on. So let's tint these clouds a little bit. We'll just go ahead and use the layer that we're on. We won't make a separate layer for it. We'll turn on Preserve Transparency, take the digital airbrush. We'll sample this yellow color here, and we'll just paint over some of these clouds. It'll kind of knock them back into the distance a little bit, and it'll kind of give us some illusion of there being distance here. Let's go ahead and put in a horizon now. We'll turn off Preserve Transparency. We'll take a look and see that our selection's still active if we do Control-Shift-H. That's good, we do want it to be. We want to make a new layer, and this will be our horizon. What we want to do is we want to keep just part of this selection, but not the whole thing. So what we'll do is we're going to hold down Alt on our keyboard, and you'll see that our cursor changes to a minus once we've selected the rectangular selection tool. So hold down minus and then draw a rectangle, and this rectangle you're drawing is essentially going to remove that part of the mask. So we want to cut this top area of the mask off, which is what we're doing here. So I'm dragging down, and then I'm letting go of both Alt and my pen. And there you go. You can see. I'll do that again one more time. So hold down Alt, drag a box, let go with your pen, and Alt, and then there you go. You've got a selection. I accidentally didn't trim enough. It's better if you start from outside your canvas, then you'll know that you get enough. Go somewhere right about there. And there we go. We've got a good selection. So let's fill that in just using the paint bucket, and we'll use a dark red. Why not? Something like that. We'll do a Control D to deselect now, and now you can see our horizons staying within here. So with our horizon layer selected now, let's go ahead and add some shading to it. So let's turn on Preserve Transparency. We'll take the digital airbrush tool, select this orange color by holding Alt. We'll lighten our horizon a little bit towards the top. And then let's establish some sort of perspective. So I'm going to make a smaller brush, and I'm going to indicate some lines that kind of emanate from this point over here. And what that's going to do is that's going to kind of make it seem like there's a perspective coming from over here on the side. Let's add some texture to the ground here. We'll do a right click on horizon, select layer content, hide the selection with Control-Shift-H, make a new layer, change the blend mode to multiply, We'll call this text. This will just be some texture for our horizon. And we'll switch to a dark orange color like this. And we want to keep our brush size pretty big in the foreground and then make it smaller as we paint the details in the background. So see how I'm scaling down my brush size? It was really big in the foreground, and then it got smaller as we went into the background. So big, medium, small. We'll blend that a little bit with a diffuse blur blender. Just blend it straight across with kind of light pressure. I get some nice texture like that. It looks like some dirt or something. Not sure what it is, but that's not important. And we want to blur our horizon line a little bit because it's a bit too sharp. So let's go to the horizon layer, and we'll use we'll deselect our selection with Control D on the keyboard. We'll use the blur brush to just paint along the edge. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see exactly what I'm doing there, because it's kind of hard to see. The edge is really sharp now, so what we're doing is we're just going to blur it a little bit like that. It makes it less sharp. It looks more natural that way. Let's make a new layer, move it behind the horizon layer. Call it hills. Let's put in some hills. Let's use the digital airbrush for that. Let's pick let's try this color here, a dark rose. And we need to confine our selection to the background, so let's click on the sky layer, right click on sky, select layer content, and move back to the hills layer. We can do Control Shift H to hide our selection. So now we won't be able to paint outside of our shape. And I'm not sure if that color works, but that's okay, we can change it. So painting in some distant hills here. Turn on Preserve Transparency, and let's tweak this color because I don't think it fits in like it should. Make it a little more purple. Maybe add some orange from the background. There we go. Something like that. We'll sample this lighter yellow color here, and towards the bottom, let's add in just a little bit of yellow. I don't know if I like that actually. Let's try it with orange. That helps a little bit. So we got some distant hills. Now let's put some rocks in the foreground here. So we'll make a new layer above all the other layers. Call it rocks. Turn off Preserve Transparency. Let's use the palette knife for this. Let's pick a stone color here. Something like that will work. Go over here on the side and let's put in some kind of rock projection. Could be any kind of shape you want. Okay, there's one rock. Let's put one maybe back here. Maybe one in the foreground too. Okay, these rocks need some shadows, so we'll turn on Preserve Transparency. Let's just take this cloud color here by sampling it. And let's say that our light is coming from the right side, so we'll put our shadows on the left of our rocks here. Just got to kind of think of these rocks as three-dimensional objects with contours. It'll be much easier to shade. And you can kind of just decide how you want to make them. Use kind of light pressure to go in and add some thinner cracks and things. Make your brush smaller if you want to. Well, let's throw some highlights on them. Use maybe an orange color like this. Here and there in a few places. Add some bright spots to make them kind of stand out. And put in some of the reflected sky color. Here, maybe sample some of this yellow. And then put in a little bit of reflected color from the sky reflecting off the backside. That'll make it look a little more natural. Let's throw in some deep shadows. I feel like this one needs some especially, so I'm just going to use a darker color. Sketch in a darker area here. And we'll throw some texture over the whole thing with a custom sponge. Kind of makes them pop out a little bit. We'll zoom in just a hair and see how we're looking. Do some blending here with the coarse oily blender. A couple spots if you think it needs it. I'll kind of help it look more like rock. And we'll do a little bit more texture with the sponge. Let's turn our opacity down to 9 though, so we don't want to overdo it. There we go, we just add some subtle texture there. It's just good to zoom in and out, see how we're looking. I think the last thing that we'll add here is let's add a bright sun spot. Maybe the sun is rising or setting over the horizon. So I'll make a layer for sun, turn off preserve transparency, set the blend mode to screen. I'll take an dark orange like this, and we'll use the glow brush. Let's say that our sun is right here behind this rock. Just getting covered up by it. We indicate the sun with a little small spot there. And then use a big brush. Kind of go back and forth between the two, and then you can kind of draw some rays emanating out from it. I'm just kind of using quick brush strokes here. I don't make it look like the sun is just spilling out from behind that rock there. Looks pretty good. So let's put some finishing touches on it here, and then we can call this good. Let's add a couple more little details, like some grass. That might kind of help it come together. We'll use the detail oils brush for that. A couple places. Put in some little blades of grass. So these little details really make the piece come together. I'm not trying to make this too long of a video, so you know I could really keep going with this and keep adding stuff in, but I just kind of want to show you a few techniques here and there, and then let you spend time making the painting, because I already know how to do it. I'll get something like that, and then let's turn off our background here, and let's click on the grass layer and click on the sky layer by holding shift and then clicking, and that'll make a selection around all these layers. And then we'll go to layers, drop. And then we'll go to layers and collapse layers. That's going to merge all those layers into a single layer. Just call it art or whatever. We didn't really have to label it there. And then now our artwork here is all on its own layer. Now we fused it together like that, merged it because there's a couple spots that I want to blend that are too sharp. So we use the diffuse blur for that. And like this edge of the rock is too sharp, I'm going to fix that. Be careful not to paint outside your artwork if you can. Fix some of that a little bit. That looks better. And then we can use some focal effects here. Let's just turn on preserve transparency to make sure we don't paint outside of this. We can use some focal effects by using the blur brush to kind of blur some of these edges, like the edge of this rock could be blurred to make it look kind of off to the side. Blend the background a little more. This rock could be pushed into the background if we just blur it all the way like that. Same thing with that grass. So you can really kind of control the focus of everything with this blurring. Works pretty well. So there you go. We've got a just random little desert scene that we painted just from imagination, and it's confined within this oval shape. So now if you were to go and save this, you would want to save it as a TIFF file. We'll take a look at that. If you save it as a TIFF and you save it with alpha, let's call this test, then what saving it with alpha is going to do is it's going to make sure that the background does not come along with it. Otherwise it would fill in this background with white, and then if you were to go to print it, you'd get the white background. So now with this background turned off, once it's saved as a TIFF file, you could take this and put it on Zazzle or Cafe Press or even, you know, anywhere else where you can use graphics with transparent backgrounds, even on the web, and you could have just an oval shaped graphic now. You don't have to be stuck with this square all the time. And you can do that with any shape you want, really. The trick is turning off this background layer or hiding the visibility of it, and then you have to save it as a particular type of file. If you save as a JPEG, it's going to add a background, but PNG and TIFF, PSD, those are all good formats to use if you want to have a transparent background. So, have fun with this, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for my next video.